everybody!
Hi.
Making sure that you can hear me. Yes,
Can
it is
you?
going. Good.
Yes.
Welcome to Dice Jailers. I'm
Yeah.
Jordan,
I'm Bjorn.
and this week we are talking about those lovable punchy boys, monks. But first, before we talk about all of that things, I actually have an announcement to throw to all of you on behalf of the channel, and that is as far as our plans to start to do one shots more often on this channel, uh, I have found a one shot that I would like to play, that I would like to play for the channel, and hopefully, my plan is to try and get it up in March. That will
Nice.
hopefully be our first one. I realize that this is also a surprise to Bjorn, so if you all see that on his face, that's why.
I'm
Um,
excited. I knew nothing about this, but I'm excited to hear it.
but yeah,
I need to
so there's
know
that.
what level is this planned for? What level adventurers?
It is a level 7 one shot.
Okay, fun.
Which is a
So
very I specifically gravitated toward this one shot because it's for level 7 group,
yep,
and that's just a weird level to be at.
I have two more one shots that we can do as the year rolls on. One of them I think is for like level 13s, so
Mm-hmm.
that one could be real fun, and the other one will be for level ones. But that will
Terrifying.
come. But that's going to come on the. It's going to lead into if I get to run Tomb of Annihilation
Right, right,
this,
right, 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 right.
and if I do, this is a precursor adventure to lead into that. That I would really love to do for the stream, and then
Yes.
I'm just going to run Tomb of Annihilation for my own little funsies,
Funsies.
but
Yeah.
people can get a little snippet of how I'm starting Tomb of Annihilation. It's not an adventure I wrote. It's one I found that I'm in love with. That the writer will get all the credit in the world when we actually run it.
Yep. So yeah, just little announcement-y things like block of time for announcements. It would be here if we had more announcements than me surprising Bjorn. Um
I'll take it though, man. I'm
but
always
yeah,
up for running an
I
adventure.
guess other announcement-y things. Just shout out to our friends at Crafty McCrafter Shop. They're not
Hell
a
yeah!
sponsor or anything. We just love them. Um, and, so Bjorn, how you been this week, bud?
Cold, real cold.
Right?
Like
It's so cold.
it, yeah. It's been one of those weeks where it was kind of cold last week, and then just kind of like turned the corner, and the weather said, "Oh yeah, February." So
I mean, it snowed on
cold.
us today.
Yeah.
I hate the
Thankfully,
snow.
not a lot of snow, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I'll deal with it as I can. Yeah. Rehearsals for East Side Actors Rep have been
Mm-hmm.
good. They've been kind of fun. I just got a new toy to help with that, which will make its appearance on this stream at some point. I have a
Ooh.
green screen now, and
Oh
I'm
boy.
I'm learning how to use it. So there will be a green screen behind me before we know it at some point, and we'll
Oh
just see
no.
what I put up on it.
Because yeah, I was
Because
gonna say because that means you're gonna be completely in control of what goes up on that, and
yeah,
that scares me.
that's awesome. So that's great. I don't remember the details on it, so I'll actually have it next time. And I guess it doesn't matter too much because not a sponsor. But I found this really cool Kickstarter where this author who he's been a gamer for a long time, he writes fantasy stuff, is creating a fifth edition Viking setting.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so I backs that, and I'm looking forward to it. And I won't lie, when I saw that it was a white dude from Alabama, I had concerns.
That yeah, that would
So
that
I
which is fair.
found his personal page, and this guy is super like just liberal as fuck and very just trying to shut down anti-trans people, getting into it with anybody who had anything negative to say about Black Lives Matter. And I went, okay, I can give this guy money because
Mm-mm.
but yeah, when I saw it, it's, not to stereotype, but I'm going to stereotype when it's a white guy from Alabama. Like I won't lie, I was like, I need
Not to
to make.
stereotype, but Alabama is for the most part
I mean,
Alabama.
I think if it's white dudes, I'm already going to be a little on edge. White dudes from the South, I'm going to be like, okay,
Yeah.
I, I have to check, man. You're from a red state. I just have to know because
Well,
if
it's
this
it's important to know where your money's going.
yeah, because this guy had been like just some like raging racist, then I'd be going like, okay, I need to make sure no one I know is donating towards this. But
Right.
then when I saw, oh, he's cool, so yep, I backed it, and I backed it at a level where there are only 9 of these available because there is apparently this elite group known as the Ravens Guard, and the backers who do that will get made into a character in the game in the setting. And you think there's a chance I'm not going to be an NPC in a Viking
Dude,
game?
your
You
name is
haven't.
already Bjorn.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to conversations with this guy.
It's gonna be great.
Those are some of my current excitements, along with, since we didn't have our game this past Sunday, I had a little extra time to plan for the one coming up this next Sunday. So that's been a little fun.
That's dope.
What about yourself?
I mean, we had rehearsal yesterday for more Vampires Than Ever Would.
Yeah, you did.
We're getting everything together because basically how the production schedule is rolling out is that like we had the show that was the the optimism tree. Next we're doing the pessimism tree, and then we'll do we did realism. Now we're doing pessimism. Then we'll do optimism. And then after all three have rolled out, so that people have a chance to see every track if they wanted to, then it gets into the point where the audience each night is going to be choosing which one.
Oh, cool.
Which will get into some crazy franticness, which will be
And
fun.
so even though you have the pessimism one coming out next, people, if they missed the realism and still want to watch it, they still can.
Absolutely. And as well as like, in the future when we do the shows where the audience actually does fully get to choose, the audience might choose realism.
Sure.
And then we'll do realism.
Nice.
Which is really fun for me to watch everyone else, because they all have like changes to the stuff that they do. And
But you
like
don't.
some of them have costume changes and like sets of costumes that they need to have at the ready. I don't. So I just get to see like on the side of my screen where I see the rest of the production stuff, I also see everyone else's video boxes in Zoom while they're frantically like, okay, and wig and these glasses.
So no matter
and
what happens,
this
you're all
coat
good.
and
That's awesome.
which is pretty fun. But yeah, the next show's on the 16th, which is next Wednesday. I don't know what days are anymore.
That would be next.
Or Tuesday.
Yep.
Yeah. What are days? But yeah, I'm doing that. And I had my harrowing journey today where I went down to Tacoma for absolutely no fucking reason.
Yes, you did.
Yep.
But Tacoma's still there, so you did a service to all of us.
That's fair. Tacoma does still exist.
Yep.
It is still physically in the same place. It smells less like manufacturing than usual.
That makes sense.
That.
That makes sense.
UW Tacoma, still a pretty campus.
There you go.
Yeah. I know it's still there. I guess that's the good thing that came out of 5 hours of my time wasted.
But you know what? It's your time's been wasted. You've been stressed. It's time to center yourself, to find that energy within you, draw on it
so I can just do cool shit without really needing to try.
Yeah, and that's our segue, because
that's what monks do.
Yes, they do. But yeah, talking about monks, I mean,
oh god,
there's only one thing to say. Let's get
gods. I'm so glad that you peeked the mic so no one actually heard that, even though they could hear it in their minds. Did you unplug your mic?
No, it just came off my body.
Oh, fair enough. But yeah.
That's
so
all.
this week we're talking about monks.
Yes!
Monks, they're the class that, like, in video games, I often will, like in RPGs especially, if there are ability choices, I will almost always go for the ones that just give you passive boosts rather than active ability boosts.
Sure.
Because I don't like to plan all the things all the time. Sometimes I just want to go, my character's here and he can just do all the stuff and I don't have to do extra inputs because I'm garbage at Street Fighter. And that's a little bit of how I feel the monks' abilities get as a class, and kind of what makes them cool is that just as the monks level up, you just do this now. You don't really have to try for most of them. You just do cool monk shit.
They get some really interesting abilities. Like, you start out with similar to the barbarian, you get an unarmored defense.
Mm-hmm.
Only yours is your dexterity and your wisdom modifiers, which very quickly you'll find as a monk you have no use for. Like
No.
right out the gate, give yourself a decent dex, give yourself a decent wisdom.
Boom.
Just do it. You'll be glad you have it, and you'll have an okay armor class. Keep those stats beefed up through the game. When you hit the point that if you have a 20 dex and a 20 wisdom as a monk, you have a 20 armor class.
Yep.
That's very respectable.
That's
Plus,
significant.
yeah. Plus, your dex is also that's running so many of your abilities both offensively and defensively
Mm-hmm.
that you need to have that built anyways. The
And
fact that you get an increased movement speed as you level up,
yeah,
you can make additional attacks with your flurry of blows,
yes,
and
that's
then
what I
get
wanted to get on. Flurry
oh,
of blows. 100% best thing besides stunning strike that you can ever have as a monk.
it's amazing. It's one key point, and you have a number of key points
Just
equal to
you
your
just
level,
get to punch so much.
and you get extra unarmed strikes. Which, when you look at your martial arts die, I mean, some might be like, well, it only starts at a D4. I'm like, that's still a dagger, bud. That's
That's where
not,
it starts.
yeah. And then it ends at a D10. The fact you're making multiple attacks around with a D10, even if you're unarmed, I I really like this class.
It's so
Also, the
great.
fact you're able to catch missiles
Mm-hmm.
and throw them back,
Just a pure yoink.
which it doesn't come up a lot, but let me tell you, at low levels, when somebody fires a crossbow at the monk and then they just catch it and whip it right back, the player who's playing that monk gets to feel so cool.
You do. You just feel you feel cool playing a monk. That's one of the things. Like you won't always feel like you're the biggest hitter, although you'll probably will be with all of the millions of punches you get to do.
Yes, you're gonna do some.
But you just get to feel cool because all of those really cool like cinematic moments that you kind of get to narrate and you want to do as an adventurer, you're gonna do as the monk
Oh, without
because you've
question.
got all of the running up walls and jumping off stuff and slow fall where you can just jump and kind of be fine.
Exactly. Yeah, you get that at fourth level. Starting
Yeah.
at fourth level, you just slow your own fall because you can. At sixth level, your unarmed strikes, they're magical now for the purposes of damage resistance.
What level is it where you can start to just run on everything?
Let's see here. That I believe is under improved movement. I want to say that's at like 11th level where you can just run up just anything you want
Yeah, something
whenever.
like that.
Oh, here's ninth level.
Yeah, ninth
You
level.
can move along vertical surfaces and across liquids on your turn without falling
Yep.
during the move. That's at
As long as you don't
friggin'
stop.
level.
As
Yeah,
long as you don't stop, you can just run up things.
yeah. You reach,
Monks.
and also you get up there high enough in levels. You make it where you understand all languages and can be understood by everyone, which is great for social stuff.
Yep.
And then my single favorite thing monks get, you reach the point where you have proficiency in all saving throws.
Yep.
There's
Which
no
that's
other
huge.
class that gets anything like this. The paladin would be the closest with
Mhm.
their auras, which we'll talk about very soon.
Yep.
But this is
What
not paladin.
paladins are what 2 weeks?
Next week, I believe.
Oh, dope.
Yeah,
I'm not good at alphabets.
but I mean, the fact that you're proficient in all saving throws means that even your dump stat, which is probably strength or charisma, because you really have no use for those as a monk, unless maybe you want to be a charismatic monk.
Unless story things.
Yeah, I don't know your life, but as a monk, you really don't need strength. Go ahead and dump that. I'll tell you now. Go ahead and dump it.
Yep.
You don't need it. But you're gonna have proficiency in strength saves when you level up to a certain point. Monks are awesome. And of all the archetypes, there is one that jumps out to me as the most appealing.
Well, before we get to archetypes,
Yeah.
are there any things about the base class of monk that they don't float your boat, so to speak?
I think the biggest thing that I would say that I don't like is I wish there were a few more key abilities that all monks got. I'd
Mhm.
like to see um, maybe another defensive one as opposed to just like patient defense.
Hmm.
I would just love to see something with more defensive options.
That that actually is also where I am with the monk. Is that when you get down to it, thematically, the monk should be just as defensive as offensive.
Yeah,
If you're thinking about even all the different kinds of D&D monk that can be, there's still probably thematically it would make sense for them to have more in the way of defense than just like, well, I've got my guard up.
exactly.
And that's a thing that really gets my goat, because that's, I mean, it's one of the coolest things about specifically the fighting style Tai Chi, when you aren't using it just as a meditation and you're actually using the movements in combat. It is so beautifully defensive, and that's where a main amount of the power of it comes. And so to not have really anything like that, I feel like it's just a big disservice to the monk, and I want it.
Yeah, and because also like when I think of the monk, um, personality wise, you think of like that like Kane from Kung Fu
Mm-hmm.
is like that is like the prototypical monk I so often think of is this quiet wanderer who just kind of walks the land quietly. I mean I imagine David Carradine like that's what it is
Fair.
deep down. Like I just imagine it's David Carradine, and that's what I go with for it.
See, I
And
imagine the raccoon from Kung Fu Panda.
that's fair. That is quite fair. Although, and we'll get into this in a minute, I'm sure, when we get to the one I don't like.
Mm.
But yeah, like I think the lack of is more defensive abilities for your key is kind of what I don't love about the monk, which is kind of what leads into my favorite archetype.
Okay, get after it.
Oh, look where it's from.
God damn it.
Yeah, it's it is the most straightforward of all of them, but it's my favorite, and that's the way of the open hand.
Word.
I love that one. Like starting level 3, when you use your flurry of blows and you hit, you get to choose an effect that
Mm-hmm.
the target of it is going to suffer from. You could knock them prone. You could knock them back. I mean, there are some real utility to that, and it's pretty friggin' powerful
Mm-hmm.
what you
And
can
the way
do.
of the open hand really gives you that, like, I am the monk that has just trained my body to be this perfect fighting machine.
Exactly. And the fact that you get a self heal. You can't use it as often as say a fighter's second wind,
Yeah.
but 6th level wholeness of body, you regain hit points up to 3 times your monk level. So starting at level 6, when you get it once per day, you can give yourself 18 hit points. These aren't temporary hit points. These aren't anything like that. It is actual. Just here are hit points. You
Mm-hmm.
recover them. And then my favorite ability they get actually is the 11th level ability, Tranquility. At the end of
Mm.
a long rest, you just have the spell Sanctuary cast on you
Yep.
until your next long rest or until you attack. And what I love about that is that means anyone who's attacking you, unless you've broken it, their attacks are at disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
And that I love. Like I love the idea of just this very calm, collected, peaceful warrior that is trying to talk down the enemy or trying to defuse some sort of situation or won't resort to violence until they deem it necessary.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, you can attack me, but it's going to be very hard to actually hit me. And
Mm-hmm.
then once they do, you could unleash, whatever powers you
Yeah.
have.
And then it's all right. Fine. The fight's on.
Yeah, and then of course I'd be very remiss if I didn't mention the 17th level ability that the Way of the Open Hand gets, the Quivering Palm Strike.
Yep.
The fact that it is the one and only 5th edition save or suck ability, where if you save, you still take 10d10 necrotic damage.
Which is a lot.
If you fail, 0 hit points.
If you
You just
fail, dead.
you just go unconscious. And I love that there is a monk that has that ability.
Yeah.
And and to me, that just feels like the quintessential monk and the kind of monk I would want to play,
It's
where
it's the pinky thing.
it really is. It's absolutely that skadoosh.
I'm just gonna keep going back to Kung Fu Panda.
And there's nothing wrong
I
with that.
enjoy
Like,
that movie so much.
Kung Fu Panda is great. And honestly, I think Kung Fu Panda is actually a really good place for people to look at for the martial artist. Um,
Mhm.
like because of the unarmed combat. And I know you can use certain weapons as a monk. And
Mhm.
honestly, until you hit a high enough level where your open hand strikes are doing a D8, you're probably carrying a spear.
Or bonking with a quarterstaff.
Sure, because yeah, you're gonna do it. I like the spear because you can throw it if need be. But
That's
yeah,
fair.
still D8 damage, and because it's a it can be used single handed. Also, you can have that open hand free for your flurry of blows on bonus actions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm either gonna go spear or quarterstaff because that still feels very very monkish to me.
Mhm.
Plus, I love the quarterstaff idea where you would be armed walking through a town. Basically, it's like who's gonna take a guy's walking stick from him?
Mhm.
So you can
And
go
then walking
anywhere.
stick thwunk.
Yeah. So that really appeals to me about it. And like I said, more than anything else, it's that ability where, oh, I finished a long rest. I have Sanctuary cast on me.
Mhm.
What are you gonna do about it?
I'm gonna try hard to hit you, and it's not
I
gonna
know.
work.
But what about you? Like
See,
what's the archetype where you're going like, this is it, this is the
for
monk.
me, my personal favorite, and this brings a lot to also just my fun of I like things that are like still the class and still very much the class, but
Yeah.
slightly here,
Yeah.
you know? Uh and that's the Way of Mercy.
I was looking at
The
that
Way of
today.
Mercy,
It's
it's
really
it's
cool.
it's new. It was in Tasha's,
Yep.
and it's super fun. Because it's that idea of the monk that is the pressure point ist, so
Yeah.
to speak. That the acupressure monk that can also use it in combat. Because basically the whole thing of Way of Mercy is that your flurry of blows can be extra pain or extra healing.
And you
And
get a
that to
plague
me,
doctor mask,
yeah, and you also get a Plague Doctor mask, which
which is cool. Like let's
I
not
mean,
lie.
not gonna lie, it's cool. I could do with or without the Plague Doctor mask for flavor, honestly, but eh. Um, but it's just the coolest thing for me. I also just love the idea of a character that can seamlessly flow between dealing damage and healing.
Well,
And it's not a lot of healing, but it's just enough to be like, and thwack thwack help you, you
and
know?
it's certainly better than that Purple Dragon Knight we were talking about last week.
Everything's better than the Purple Dragon Knight.
You're not wrong. But no, I'm with you on liking the healing because I think one of the things you hear a lot from people when discussing building an adventuring party, you'll always hear this, well, you need a healer. And I don't think you need a dedicated healer in any adventuring party.
Yeah,
I
but
think
it's
you're
nice to have.
sure. I think you're a little foolish if you set out with no one who has any method of healing whatsoever,
Yeah,
because otherwise you just slow down your own gameplay by the number of rests you'll have to take.
you really do.
So having a combat class that can also do some healing makes a really big difference.
I also just love the flip side of the heal or the harm is what you can do with the Hand of Mercy, with the Way
Yes.
of Mercy, and I just love thematically that idea of the acupressurist that is just able to strike at like these four different pressure points on my teammate to heal them,
Sure.
and then hit slightly above those four same pressure points on an enemy and demolish them from the inside out.
Yeah, because you can do some real damage with that way of harm.
Oh yeah, because it's basically just inflict wounds spell,
Yeah.
but it's
And the
with
nice
your
thing is,
flurry of blows.
yeah, and the nice thing is because it's necrotic damage, unless you're playing in an undead heavy campaign, not a lot of things resist necrotic.
No, not really.
Like your damage is probably going to hang around.
And plus, like when you get stronger in the Way of Mercy, when you hit that sixth level for Physician's Touch, that is huge because
Yes.
status effects are really really good ways for a DM to put some harm on a party and make a combat a little more difficult than it would be normally.
Yeah,
And that
status effects will mess you up.
yeah, and that physician's touch, that's still just your regular hand of healing, but instead of but like you can just choose to end one disease or a condition. And so it's just like, oh, your teammate's paralyzed. Well, pop pop on this enemy and then flurry of blows. Bink, you're not paralyzed anymore. And that's
And
like that's so cool and so huge.
I just realized we're halfway into our monk episode here almost, and we haven't even touched on what is arguably the monk's greatest ability, which will piss off your DM
Oh,
when you're
stunning strike.
successful with it. Stunning God's damn strike.
So we
A
have
word. A
we have
word
a
to
beautiful, beautiful group chat for our campaign, and we often will change around our nicknames in that group chat.
Yep.
And for the longest time, Bjorn's longest name, the longest running name in that is the DM who hates Stunning Strike.
Sure does. Sure does. So yeah, if you're a DM and you've never had a monk in your adventuring party, here's what's going to happen. You'll have an awesome encounter built. The monk will rush in and go to hit, and they'll use Stunning Strike. You'll have to make a Constitution saving throw. When you fail that throw, not if, your monster is stunned until the end of the monk's next turn, meaning the whole party is going to tee off on
Yep.
them. Legendary
sure
resistances are your friends. I hate Stunning Strike.
It was one of the funniest things to happen in that campaign.
Oh yeah, but I will also say this for the monk player, landing that Stunning Strike, they feel so awesome.
You feel so powerful.
It's a great moment for them. So I would say make sure that you have monsters that don't have just obscene con modifiers all the time. You want the monks to be successful sometimes, but maybe make sure you give some stuff a legendary resistance or two before
Otherwise, your giant rampaging monster bug is going to just get stunned and wrecked.
Exactly. But yeah, Stunning Strike is pretty incredible. Just when you consider you're only paying a single key point to use it each time. Now, granted, those key points can add up, but all you need is one of those things to land.
And also one thing that we didn't really touch on in like the main talking about the class itself is just the value of those key points.
Yeah.
But also use them.
Yes, like don't if you go to take a long rest and you're still full on key points, if you had combat that day, you could have been more useful in the combat.
Well, and it's just it's the same thing that a lot of people do with spell slots, especially like as a warlock or something, where you want to make sure, because we're all gamers and we all hold the BFG and all of its ammo until after the final boss, just in case there's a secret boss at the end.
And then when there isn't, you feel dumb.
Yeah, and you'll feel dumb if you don't use those key points. Like, use them. You don't need to be worried about being useless without the key points.
No,
because it's like, especially compared to other classes in D&D 5th edition that have, things that have limited uses. The monk is the one class that I think like could use up all of those limited use things and still be just as useful.
Yeah,
without them.
The other thing to remember about key points, you get them back after a short rest.
Yeah.
So it's not like a paladin spell slots where, well, you're only getting it back after a long rest, bud. Yeah. You can use these pretty freely, especially when you get to higher levels.
Yeah, because you'll have a bunch at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, key points, Stunning Strike, use them.
Now you said you had one that was an honorable mention for one you liked.
Yes, my honorable mention is because my two favorite ideas of monk are like classic Zen Buddhist monk.
Absolutely.
For one. I mean, I guess like tertiary shout out to Jackie Chan's Drunken Master.
Oh, hell yeah.
But the one that I shout out is because of the 90s.
Yeah?
The Way of the Sun Soul
Oh
Because you're just a Dragon
yes.
Ball Z character.
Oh man. I know I'm with you. I love the way of the Sun Soul. I don't care that as far as mechanics wise, it's not great. I don't care. I can throw Hadoukens. I
You're
can call a spirit bomb.
yeah. Like you're Ryu and or a DBZ character. Like
Like take your pick.
Way of the
Yeah.
Sun Soul.
No, I'm with you. I love the way the Sun Soul. It's a lot of fun. It's actually if I ever got to play a monk, it's one of the ones I would look at.
Mhm.
Also, partially because it gives you a ranged option,
Yeah.
which that's a big thing to realize with a monk is if if you can't get up in something's grill outside of throwing darts or throwing your one spear at it, you probably don't have a whole lot of ways to deal with that.
Not
And
if you do the Sun Soul.
yeah, you get a ranged attack. It's 20 short range, 60 long range, but
Yep.
you have a ranged attack.
It's just a key blast. It's so great.
It is. It is. It's full on Dragon Ball, and we know it.
But yeah,
Um,
that's why like I would be disappointed at us if we didn't mention the Sun Soul at least once,
well,
because who doesn't want to be Goku at some point?
sure. And honestly, I'll tack on with that as far as another one that I like, where I don't think it's great mechanically, and I think some of the abilities cost more key points than they're worth. But
Hmm.
that's the way of the four elements.
Yeah,
Like that is
I'm with you on
that is so anime or
it really
like
is.
classic, kung fu. Like you imagine like rising serpent fist or whatever. Like
Yeah,
you have these very intricate names for these abilities, and then it's like, oh, it's called this, and you cast burning hands or whatever,
yeah,
and it's cool. But so if you want to have that monk that is just all in tune with the ways of nature and the elements, I think there's a lot of role play potential there. And I'll put it in the same categories like the Sun Soul, where there's a lot of fun you can have here.
yeah. It's not the greatest if you're looking at pure numbers, but
No.
good gods are those fun.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's an important thing to look at is it going to be fun with the character you've built?
Yes.
Um, and as much as I love to be on fun, and you're talking about like 90s, see for me, I'm a little more 80s, like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
There's one area we probably have some overlap, though this isn't going to be as primal to you as it is to me. And there's the subclass I hate because I
Okay.
want to love it, because I love the Ninja Turtles. I
Yes.
love
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
Ninja Turtles.
Yep. Yep.
They're
Tell
amazing.
me. Tell me more right now.
But the problem is, of all the monk ones, because a monk represents sort of a martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think if you're going to try and play one of the Ninja Turtles, in some cases, you might be better off taking a different class or thinking about how you're going to reskin your weapons, because the way of the Kensei just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah. Unless you're being an archer, there's no real reason to play Way of the Kensei.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you get access to more weapons, but like frankly, if I really wanted to play a Ninja Turtle, which is totally doable,
Yeah.
um, and I'm like, I want to be Leonardo because he's my favorite, and I love Leonardo. For his blades, I'm just going to use two short swords and tell my DM that they're longer, they're skinnier, so I can wield them two handed, and
Yeah.
they're monk weapons, so they do the same amount of roll as your martial art die. They would level up with it. Um, yeah, like that's just what I would
Yeah.
do, and I want to like the Kensei so bad. I
Well,
do
because
because I want.
in past editions, the Kensei is so much better.
Yeah,
Like in past editions, you're able to like through the with the Kensei, you're able to like, because with this one, like sure you've got the agile parry, ooh, and your weapons are magical now, but the coolest thing about the older Kenseis were that you got straight from the jump instead of at level 11. You got ways to use your key points with your weapon.
yeah, and that's why it doesn't jive with me. And honestly, if you're going, but I want to be a Ninja Turtle, I'm gonna be the turtle, I'm gonna be a monk, and I'll be like, go Way of the Shadow.
Yeah, if you're gonna do that.
If you're like you want this ninja experience, the abilities you get, I think, are far superior and also far more fun. The fact that you
Absolutely.
get things like Pass Without a Trace and Darkness, like
Because
those.
so much of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was also their like ninja-ness.
Yeah, and to me, that feels more like this ninja character that I'm really gonna
Absolutely.
enjoy. And in fact, if someone were to say they wanted to do like a rogue assassin because they were thinking about ninja, I might actually try and pull them back to the Monk Way of the Shadow.
Hmm.
Maybe talk about a multi-class there because those would work in tandem well.
Oh yeah.
But again, because that's also working as a group, you could have a group of 4 turtles that are all Way of the Shadow monks that really work well in unison. Though, if we're going
I
to get
may
into
or
Ninja
may not be
Turtles,
writing a one shot for that. So.
but I was also going to say, if we're playing Ninja Turtles, they actually all shouldn't be too similar in build because each of the 4 had very different styles and stuff they
Mm.
did. Donatello would be an artificer.
Oh,
Like, let's be
absolutely.
honest here. Leonardo's a fighter.
Hmm.
But I digress.
Anyway.
Yeah, but yeah, like I wanted to like Kensei a lot when I saw there was one that allowed weaponry. I
Hmm.
was like, oh, this could be really cool because I think of that scene in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon where
Yes.
Zhang Ji and Michelle Yeoh, and Michelle Yeoh goes through I don't know how many weapons trying to fight against the Green Destiny, and
God, it was upwards of like 20. It was like
it's one of the
25, 30, somewhere in
one of the
there.
coolest fight scenes I've ever seen. And
Hmm.
so I like the idea of this martial artist using all these different weapons. And then when it comes down to it, I just don't like how it works. And I feel like some of the abilities actually take away from what the monk can do. Like you said, unless you're using a longbow, it's not that great.
Yeah.
And frankly, if you're like, well, I really want to be able to do range stuff, I'm going to probably go, you might want to look at a different class.
Yeah. I mean,
Because,
admittedly, like taking the Kensei with a bow isn't that unfun that I would say like, hey, maybe play another class. But if someone was gonna be was saying they wanted to play a Kensei and they weren't using a bow, that's when I'd start to be like, hey, you might want to do anything else.
yeah,
Except the
I
Purple
think that's
Dragon Knight, because the Purple Dragon Knight is garbage.
it is. It is. But yeah, like that's the point where if it's a newer player, I think that's a good time to have a chat with them and just find
Yeah.
out what is it you want your character to be good at. Because
Hmm.
I always think that's a very important question because you might find out through that conversation as they're describing this badass ninja warrior that they want, you might actually realize that who knows? It could be a ranger or a paladin or a fighter or heck, even a barbarian
Be a
that
multi-class rogue Barian.
could be. You may find that one of these other classes actually suits what they want to do so much better.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so that's me just dunking on the Kensei. I don't like it. I
It's
wanted to like it, but if you're going to be a ninja, Way of the Shadow is to me more fun,
well, and
simply because Pass Without a Trace.
yeah. But, like the reason why the Kensei is not a good subclass, and it comes back to pretty much all the other not a good subclasses we've talked about before, is really that like we know what it should be and it's not.
Yeah,
Except for the Purple Dragon Knight, which is just garbage.
it really is. Like
I'm just gonna forever, now that we've said it, I can just keep dunking on the Purple Dragon Knight.
there is not a worse archetype in,
There, you're
in
right.
in my opinion
It's
because
it's so
it
bad.
does nothing.
It is it is a thematic archetype, and that's it. That's all.
Yeah,
It's a
and honestly,
it's flavor text
it's
of an
good for
archetype,
one city on the Sword Coast.
and it's not even that good for that city.
So what about you? Like,
Anyway,
what archetype to you is like the I don't love this one?
so the one that I don't like, and it's more for thematic reasons than mechanic reasons, and that's the Way of the Long Death.
You know,
It
I almost said that one.
it's because it seems like it would be cool because like you know you can get your edgelord anti-hero monk out through this,
Yeah,
but like it's not that good.
you're
Just like just play that instead of having it be your archetype, because the Way of the Long Death, like, you get like the thing you get at level 11, which we've talked about for all the other subclasses, the
Yeah,
thing you get at level 11, you know what it is? Orc ferocity.
basically, yeah, yeah, and it's kind of cool having this ability where it's really hard to die. Like, you know, we'll jump back to our barbarian conversation. I know you're not
Mm,
big on the path of the zealot. Conversely, I am, and that's also partially I have this idea for a barbarian I want to play, where
mm-hmm.
basically they were chosen by the gods. They can't die until they've done something, and their
Right,
reward once their quest is up is they'll ultimately be allowed to die. And
right.
I like that concept for a barbarian because I
But
like
for a
that concept.
monk,
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a
mm,
monk to me. It feels like I can see it from a cleric, I can see it from a barbarian, I can see it
yeah.
from a paladin, but for a monk to have this like, oh, you just can't die, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a very tanky class, and as someone who plays tanks, you'd think I'd like that more,
But
but
it's a weird kind of tank,
it
because like
is.
that tankness comes from the Touch of Death, which is just a little bit of temporary hit points on top of what you have. And temporary hit points aren't as useful as they look,
Right.
because like the temporary hit points, they don't stack.
No,
So really it's just like,
correct.
it's your wisdom mod and your monk level, which,
Yeah, and you need to be taking damage for it to be worthwhile.
yeah. And so like most of the like defensiveness of being a monk is just you don't hit me.
Yeah,
So, ooh, temporary hit points on top of not getting hit. Cool.
yeah. Like
Uh,
you would kind of want to be hit some, which again is very contrary to being a
yeah,
monk because your hit die is a D8. So it's not like you got that D10 hit die to give you those hit points that you're like, I'm fine, I can take the lumps.
right. And like, and also like they're the biggest ability for the subclass, the Touch of the Long Death. I mean, it can be a lot of damage at once, because for each key point, it's an extra 2d10 damage. Like,
Right.
that's big, but also, you don't get that until 17th level, and
Yes.
you know who else gets something close to that?
Way the open hand.
And the Way of Mercy.
Yep. And I would argue that theirs are both better.
They are, because like each of them, they only take a key point, or I think the open hands is like what,
It's
3 or something
three.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Touch of the Long Death is just between 1 and 10, however many you want to pump in, which is cool for that like one big ol' hit. But as a monk, your thing is a bunch of hits, not one big ol' hit.
Exactly.
And
Like,
it's just weird. It's just a weird feel for a monk.
no, I agree. I think it's one of those ones that it looks okay on paper, but I think a lot of people, if they played it, wouldn't find it rewarding as as,
Exactly.
as a class.
Especially because it seems like it'd be cool. You're this like walking unarmed avatar of doom. Like, you get the Hour of Reaping ability, which gives you a fear effect, which can be big, and thematically it's cool, but it's just a fear, and that's
Yeah,
your level 6.
and
Like,
and and I would also say, for the idea of this character that can gain these temporary hit points as they're striking down foes, um, give me a fighter or a paladin that has that.
yeah, I mean, there's ways for a cleric to have that as well,
Yeah,
and blood hunters.
yeah, but like, give me something that's a D10 hit die, and I only
Yeah,
say that because make it so I'm not as concerned about my hit points
yeah,
because a D8's respectable. But when we talk about the D8 for hit points, we talk about things like, first off, like bards and druids, where you're
mhm,
going, hey, this is a pretty good hit die for this here spellcaster. Or in the case of clerics, where you say, oh, you're a healer, but you can still wade into battle. You can take some hits.
yeah.
You'll be all right.
You can take
Whereas,
one or two.
yeah, whereas if your primary purpose is to be a martial melee class, your goals should either be to not get hit, which I would put like the monk and the rogue in those
Yep,
categories,
that. Mm-hmm.
or you don't care so much if you get hit. And that's your fighter, ranger, paladin, then of course barbarian,
Yeah,
who I would say goes beyond that to wants to get hits.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I play rangers as don't get hit, but I get what you mean.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, it's one of those where it's weird and it doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I'm sure there are people out there who are like, no, I have this great character concept and I can totally make it work. And as always, we're not here to yuck your yum.
if you like it, do it. It just feels weird for me.
Yeah. Like it's one of there are very few archetypes that if somebody was planning to play and came to my table to play a campaign and I always like to start at level 1 or 2. So I don't
Just to
know
get
what
the
arc.
fear of level 1 in them.
Yeah, I usually like to start at level 2, but level 1 can be kind of fun. Briefly,
Level 1 can be scary.
it is. Yeah, level 1's terrifying. Oh man. Woo-hoo. After
Level
just
1
playing
wizards are
level 1
so
wizard-
scared of
Yeah, I played a
everything.
level 1 wizard. I had 8 hit points. It's not a lot.
I mean, that's a lot for a level 1 wizard.
It's gonna have an okay con because con is not a dump stat.
Yes, it is.
Nope, it is not a dump stat.
That's
But
underclass.
yeah, it does not. But yeah, whatever class someone's bringing to the table, I'm going to ask them, "Oh, do you know what archetype you're thinking of taking?" And the biggest reason I actually like to ask that is I want to make sure I plan stuff in my adventure for everyone.
Absolutely.
I love to have moments where, as a group is playing, for that character to step up and be like, "Oh, I got this."
Yeah, like this is my cool thing.
Yeah. And so if they said, "Oh," if it was a monk, they're like, "Oh, I think I'm going to go Way of the Long Death."
You don't have a cool thing to do.
Yeah, I would ask. I go, "Really? What drew you to that one?" Like, I would ask, and it's not to try and change their mind. It's not to to poop on what they like. But I know that if they said Way of the Open Hand, I'd be like, "Oh, badass! Yeah, that's great."
Mhm.
But I would want to know what drew them towards it
And
because
probably it's that kind of plague doctory feel that they have, and then I would just point them to the way of mercy.
which oh man, I honestly feel like the creation of the Way of Mercy was someone looking at the Way of the Long Death and went, "I can improve this."
Maybe.
Because it
Uh
kind of feels like that.
it does. It really does. And that's also part of why I just don't like it. Is because Way of Mercy does it better. Does it all better.
Like I was ready to not like Way of Mercy just when I first read the description. I was
Mm-hmm.
going,
Me
and
too.
then I started reading the abilities, and very quickly I went, "No, this is cool." Because it's like you said, the fact that you know physiology so well that you can heal or you could harm, and what I really like about it is, let's face it, in older editions of D&D, monks were really fucking problematic.
Yes.
Like you got into a lot of really stereotypical and racist Asian stereotypes. Like
Absolutely.
you would get a lot of that. Like you had adventures that flat out used the term Oriental. Like
Yep.
it
The
was,
whole book.
yep, there was.
Oh,
There's a whole book on that. And you
the
get some people like,
past.
"Are we going to see a reprint of that?" And Watsy's like, "Sure not.
No. Nope.
Not that one." But
We might take some things from it and rename it.
yes, I totally think they should for some of those things. Like,
Yeah.
take some of those great settings, remove the problematic stuff. Heck, look what they did with Strahd Revamped about how
Absolutely.
they changed the Vistani and took out a lot of those racist Romani stereotypes and made them into fully fleshed out NPCs.
Right.
But with all the problematic stuff that used to exist in monks, this to me really felt like, there you have certain visions in your head of various healers across
Mm-hmm.
different cultures. And let's face it, we see those moments in martial arts films
All
where,
the time.
yeah, like look at Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi helping getting Danielson set and ready for the final, and it's like, and he's basically going, it's like it's a band-aid on a bullet wound, but
Yeah.
he can go forward.
Well,
And
And it also the Way of Mercy really brings to mind for me because it's not a fighting style that I've practiced, but I absolutely love Tai Chi.
Yeah,
Like I haven't practiced it at all, but I love to watch it, and I love all the thought process behind it, the methodology of it, and that brings me to where a lot of people will draw their character ideas from monks, at least if you are my age or younger, and those are all from Naruto.
sure.
It's gonna happen because it's hand to hand combat. Yes, they're ninjas instead of monks, but for the most part, it's hand to hand combat.
Yeah,
And the Way of Mercy just gives me big Neji vibes. And besides Shikamaru, Neji was my dude. So it's the whole pressure points, acupressure, using it in combat as well as to heal. It's just so cool to me.
oh yeah.
And
And
you
when
can
for
see
me,
it over a wide variety of cultures, not just East Asian.
yeah, and for me, it goes back to some anime as well. Obviously, you're gonna have some, so like Ninja Turtles is obviously there, but then
Hmm.
for the anime stuff, we mentioned Dragon Ball. For me, also, I was big into Ranma One Half.
Oh
So
man, I'd
yeah,
forgotten about Ranma One Half.
I love Ranma, and I
I mean,
really
there's
feel
some
like,
there's some troubles in it. Not gonna lie,
I mean, yes, there really are, but
but
also in time I'll be like, I was 18 when I was watching it. I was much younger, much dumber, so we didn't notice some of the troubles as
yeah,
much now. Whereas we could
you
look
know,
back on some stuff and go, oh
the past it didn't exactly age well, but
no,
the fighting
but
though.
yeah, but the idea of these combatants who had their own very specific abilities, or any of the various anime that were based around combats,
Oh, absolutely.
King of Fighters, like,
Also, the more recent King of High School,
yep,
which if you haven't watched it, do. It's super dope. I had my
or
doubts and I was wrong.
even on into One Punch Man,
Yeah,
like, to me, like the way of the open hand, the fact that you have that save or suck ability, like if you want to have that One Punch Man feel,
that is. Yeah, you're right. That straight up is One Punch Man.
like that's it right there. Like it lands, you spend 3 key points, and what's so great about that ability is it stays vibrating in them within multiple days,
Yep.
and you can choose to either dismiss it or, as an action, set it off. And they have to make a con save. So that's the other thing that I love about that ability. You can be in a combat. It's the classic thing about the big bad evil guy. Like
Yeah.
if it's a wizard and they have that teleport spell, and you land that quivering palm strike on them, and they teleport away, you can just be like, oh yeah,
Got
hey
him.
DM, make a con save. Let your wizard make a con save, which
Oh
is great.
man.
Which is great. It's a wonderful way to shut down those escaping enemies. But
There's a whole lot of me now that wants to like put together a monk NPC that's like kind of like what they did with Toph in Korra, where she was just like, I mean, you already know how to do this. I'll be here and kind of help you, but not really. And you might die. And that's just the like, all right, and everyone quivering palm. If you don't finish the training,
I uh, I also think what's great about monks is because they run off of dexterity and wisdom.
Mhm.
It's a really cool class because they're really good for multi-classing.
Absolutely.
I don't know that the monk's capstone ability is so great that I'd be afraid to lose it. Because I always
Yeah.
say, if you're going to multi-class, two important things to know. One, what level is your campaign going up to?
Hmm.
And two, what abilities are you sacrificing by multi-classing?
And
Um,
with monks, you really don't lose. I thought perfect because I hadn't actually looked at the
yeah,
capstone ability because I saw perfect self and I was like, yep, I remember what that is. No, I don't.
yeah,
It's so much worse.
yeah,
It's so much more useless. I think that might now be my least favorite thing about the monk as a class.
yeah. You're like, oh, if you start combat, you have no key points, you
You've
get
got
some.
4.
Yeah, and again, like we
Yay!
talked about, if you're 20th level, you have 20 key points per short rest.
Why?
How did you use them all? What did you do? What's wrong with you?
Were you just
Slow
stunning
down.
striking a group of kobolds for some reason?
Yes. But so I go
Just-
to the monk and go, you know what? I'll give up a couple levels, and you can multi-class into rogue very easily.
Yeah, I highly like now that I see just how garbage Perfect Self is.
Yeah.
I heavily support multiclassing into rogue or ranger, maybe even wizard, just to confuse people.
You know, see, if I'm gonna play a monk and I'm gonna multi-class, I'll tell you where I'm looking. I'm looking at the cleric
Oh, word.
because my wisdom will be high enough that I could do that.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of cleric classes that could really go quite well along with the monk. Like you could take yourself, have that grave cleric,
Yeah. Oh,
or
yeah.
even a death cleric, or the idea that you're this servant to the Raven Queen who's out to destroy undead.
Yeah,
Like,
that's super cool.
or like you're talking about, the way of mercy. Combine that with a life cleric just to have a little more healing. Granted, you have access to that heavy armor that you have no friggin' use for. Don't bother.
You're a monk. Who cares about
Yeah.
heavy armor?
But having just those few spells, and also because you could have, guiding bolt and sacred flame, then for those ranged problems, you just
You've
open up
got
a
it
whole.
solved. Yeah.
Yeah. So monks are great too because, like I said, you can multi-class with them. They're hard to multi-class into because you have to have both Dex and Wisdom 13.
Yeah. But they're really easy to multiclass out of.
Oh yeah, like rogue and cleric would be the first two I would look at, and then after that, possibly druid.
Oh no. A sneak attack quivering palm. Oh no.
Just a little extra.
That's
Just a little
scary on so many levels.
So delightful.
So it's just, and bam, lots of damage. Also,
Also, you gonna die. Yeah, but
also,
but
here's this
honestly,
huge amount of damage, or you just die. Oh,
monks
no.
are great because at low levels, you can be level 2 and you can make 4 attacks in one round.
Yep.
Nobody else gets to do that.
Nope.
And the great thing is, you don't stop feeling like a badass as a monk.
No, there's like we've talked about it in other ones where there's like the level droughts where
Yeah.
you don't really get fun stuff. There isn't. I won't say there isn't those level droughts for monk, but they are much smaller.
Yeah, I would say the only point where you really hit any sort of level drought with monks is honestly, it's usually the higher levels.
Yeah.
Because you get so much at lower levels. And again, a lot of the features like Tongue of the Sun and the Moon and Perfect Body, those things, they're great. And you get those in those mid to mid high levels.
Mm-hmm.
Most capstone abilities for monks, honestly, aren't that great.
Nope, they are not. They
I
are
would say
really not.
I would say the open hand is the only one that has a great one with the quivering
Mhm.
palm strike. The way the Drunken Master has a fun one if you're
Yeah.
fighting a
Yeah.
whole bunch of minions, whereas you can make up to 7 attacks in one round.
Which that one's just funny.
Yeah, so that's a delight. The one thing being is like every attack has to be against a different enemy. But
Yeah.
if you're playing against like a whole bunch of minions, or let's say you're fighting this big badass boss in their lair, and one of the lair actions is I summon a bunch of minions, your Drunken Master monk can be like, got it. Got
Just,
not
I
a
summon a
problem.
bunch of minions. Your drunken master will go, dibs.
Yeah, like I'm just gonna lay these fools out because I can.
Dibs
So-
on which one? All of them.
Yeah, all of them at
All
once.
of them.
So yeah, like you said, man, this is another class very similar to Fighter, where it's hard to find things not to like. Like,
Yeah, and a lot of those
nitpicking.
things not to like are just because we see the potential and want it to be better.
yeah, and when that's all you can say is like, well, I want it to be better. It's a pretty well built class overall.
Absolutely.
If you're a player who wants to mix it up and be a badass, but you don't want to be that traditional adventurer, you don't want to carry a sword and shield, or you don't like the idea of this big beefy brute of the barbarian, I don't understand not liking that, but
Some people like to be speedy, my friend.
a barbarian gets improved movement, man. Barbarians are fast.
There's more things to speed than just movement.
Squish.
Agility, my dude.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. But yeah,
Someday I'll get you to be a dodgy boy.
you know what? There are dodgy classes I like, and Monk is one of them.
Yeah.
And,
Oh,
uh,
Jesus. Look at the time.
I know. We hope you had fun, or at least were somewhat entertained.
I mean, we had fun, so I mean,
I'm not gonna lie.
As much as I enjoy our audience having fun, for this one, I don't really care because I had fun.
Yeah. There are times where I'm like, you know what? I hope they had fun, and there are times where I'm like, you know what? I just had fun. I am also very excited for next week when we talk about the Paladin.
Yep. Paladins are yo boys.
I love them. So it's gonna be fun. Be fun.
I mean, they're fine. But
yeah, thank you guys for tuning in so much.
We always appreciate it. Please remember to check through on YouTube comments and on our page, and I'm trying to be better about putting stuff on our page.
Yeah, please like, share, subscribe, and if you don't want to like or subscribe, just please share. Just maybe someone will get a kick out of it. We hope they do.
Send it to your nerd friend.
Yeah.
Every friend group has at least one.
Yeah,
and if you don't know who,
it's you. Yeah, 100%. That's how it works, man.
I mean, if you own a set of dice, it's you.
Word.
All right. We should get going because we'll just ramble on till the end of days. So Bjorn, what do we always say?
Do something nice for yourself this weekend.
Catch you next week.
Later.